Okay, man, are you ready to go?
I'm ready to go. Now, come on, now crank this motherfucker up.
Break it down like this.
Hello, Internet. Gino, the Guido Grieco here again with another episode of Deep Listens, and today we are delving into the mysterious and spooky land of Bright Falls, where Stephen King's little brother with a different name, Alan Wake, is running around with a flashlight and trying to find his wife. Ooh! And joining me, as always, on the quest to find a wife, Pete Busby. Hello, Pete.
Hey, excited to play another game where an artist has let's call it a troubled relationship for now. We'll certainly unpack that as we go. Fun fact for this one, not that fun, I'll be honest. But I found, they're very rarely fun. But I did find it interesting. So do you know the Werner Herzog documentary, Encounters at the End of the World?
No. I'm going to say yes. I'm going to lie, and
Okay.
I'm going to say yes.
Excellent.
I know
Either
Werner
way,
Herzog. I've never
setup
seen
doesn't
this.
matter. All right, if you know Werner Herzog, you pretty much know the vibe of the documentary, right?
Okay,
It fits.
That's what I
So
figured.
it's about people and animals in Antarctica. Right? So a very cruel and harsh environment. But apparently there's this thing penguins do sometimes where one penguin will just wander into Antarctica. Like this penguin will just walk miles and miles
They know.
into the interior of the continent until it dies,
Huh.
basically.
Oh,
And even if you pick up the penguin and bring it back, if you're like, no, penguin, like that's not where you belong, it'll just turn around and keep walking towards the mountains.
So we have evidence that penguins experience existential dread?
That's Werner's explanation, pretty much. Corollary, there's apparently, at least at one British sanctuary, like British Zoo, more or less, they give depressed penguins antidepressants. Because apparently the weather is so terrible that it depresses these penguins.
They just don't want to be around
even
anymore.
the penguins are depressed by this.
Yeah, this is from a HuffPo article, Depressed Penguins Given Drugs at British Sanctuary, which tells you pretty much all you need to know.
That's incredible on so many levels. I just love that there's some penguins in the Antarctic who are just like, I don't want to be around anymore.
Yeah.
I'm going to go on an
They
adventure.
I'm
Wander
going,
away.
and you can't stop me. And if you try to stop me, I'll just go again.
Yes. They don't know what happened to their peepaw or whatever who went out into the mountains in the distance. They don't know that there's a penguin pile that like 5 miles inland
Jesus.
where all the penguins end up. As far as they know, it's just adventure. It's the land before time out there. They're just going out there. Brave little toaster.
Yeah, this is the plot of Happy Feet.
Yes.
Actually,
This is the
Yeah,
fun
that's how
happy
I
thing.
remember.
yeah.
I remember him walking past the bones on his way.
He danced through them, and you might have missed it because it was so cheery.
Yeah. That's what the clacking was of the taps.
Yeah,
What's the bone?
This is the bones. That other voice you heard is the one and only mistress of games, M. Palladino. How are you doing, M?
Hello, I'm doing okay. Played Alan Wake. That did not make my week much better, but here I am, doing okay.
Probably didn't make it that much worse.
Not so much worse. I mean, it was basically a net zero.
Yeah. Well, we'll
Yeah.
get to that in a minute. First, our housekeeping. Reminder, you can get in touch with the show at Deep Listens Pod on Twitter, deeplistens.libsyn.com. We have our comment sections, and deeplistenspodcast@gmail.com. That's where you can send emails to us, and we might reply. Who knows? And you also can support the show on patreon.com/deeplistens, which would get you access to our Discord. You could end up on the Discord report, which you might be familiar with. You can interact with the hosts of the shows. You can suggest games for us to play. And if we get a scant 3 more people supporting the show, we will have to play Sonic 06, and the Off the Deep End folks will be playing Ultima 9, a.k.a. Ultima Sonic 69, which is what we're calling it, but we will almost certainly never publish that anywhere. You have to listen to the podcast to get me to find out about that. Speaking of the Discord, hey, what's going on the Discord report?
The Discord report. Boop-a-doop-a-doop-a-doop-a-doop. I almost tried to do this while you were in the middle of your sentence before, but
see, that's the chemistry we've built over these years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yep. On the Discord report, Pete, what do you think the best rendition of Sherlock Holmes has been in recent years? Do you have an opinion on this?
In recent years, it's not Benedict Cumberbatch. I guess Robert Downey
not.
by default. Oh, wait, there's Henry Cavill, too.
Is he?
Yeah,
oh, yeah,
well, he's in
Enola Holmes.
Yeah.
Yes.
He's not the best, though.
Isn't Lucy Liu?
Yeah, I like Elementary with Johnny Lee Miller and Lucy Liu.
Is Lucy Liu Sherlock in that?
No, she's Watson.
Oh. Okay.
But she
like,
could have been.
Choice.
She could have been both, and it would have been a good show. We talked about that in the TV and movies channel. What else have we got going on?
Someone also posted about Sherlock Holmes in the 22nd century, which
yes.
is a real show that people don't seem to believe existed. It did. I swear. I think it was on
no one else can correlate these claims.
Isn't that just like Doctor Who?
I mean, it was I think it was an American TV show, so no.
Okay.
They solved murders, but he was just like, it was like Sherlock Holmes got frozen for 200 years or something, and now he's solving crimes with John Watson, who is also frozen.
Is he still addicted to cocaine?
Is that really what happened?
I think that's what it was. I think he gets frozen and then wakes up and he's like, where's the opium? I need it.
You would think that would have dried him out, but whatever.
Nope. Just made the addiction stronger.
Yep. In other news, card games. We're playing a bunch of card games. I've coerced people into playing the online Yu-Gi-Oh! Thing.
That you did.
Yeah. Please log in and enter my code 16698C67, and that will give me free cards.
What was that number again if people want to help you out, Em?
Just one more time. That number was 16698C67. Thank you.
Do the games last longer than one turn online?
No.
Sometimes they last 3.
Real marathon.
You need to set up a little bit more.
Sometimes you need romance in a game of Yu-Gi-Oh!
I've got it down to where if I go second, I can win. But if I go first, I'm going to lose almost certainly. But
sounds like a fun game.
Yeah.
We'll start playing immediately.
Most people want to go first, but I want to go second.
Those fools.
And that's my trick. That's how I pull one over on you.
You moron, said the spider to the fly.
And
yeah, I played a bad card game. This is not a shout out. It was called Dream Team Basketball. It was I
can't imagine why it wasn't good.
Yeah, it was a like someone tried to make a card game out of very, very much illegal versions of NBA players, which was
it the actual Dream Team or just like a whole bunch of players?
Oh, Luka Doncic.
Okay. Good.
Yes, Kyrie Stirving. Mm-hmm. You know, just a lot of players who have abilities that might be reminiscent if you know who they're based on lightly.
Reminiscent, but legally distinct from.
Yes. Yeah. What do you mean? It's Christian Wood. It's the W silent, but don't worry, the H is silent. But whatever. So yeah, that game's not very good, but I did talk about it a little bit on the Discord. Yeah, I think that covers it. And anything else? The Super Bowl happened. People seem to talk about it.
I literally didn't know until I went to work and people were like, "Are you open today? It's the Super Bowl." I was like, "News to me. Come on in. We're open."
Way to go. Way to not
Who
know.
won?
The
Chiefs.
do you know what city the Chiefs are from?
No.
No.
Can you name one salient fact about them? There might be one you would know.
Is this the one with Taylor Swift's boyfriend?
You
on
got it.
That's it.
Yay!
You did it.
Yep. That's the only thing that's important about the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yep.
That Taylor Swift sometimes smooches one of their players.
Yeah. I read somewhere a conspiracy theory that this was a psyop of some sort to make them win the Super Bowl and get Joe Biden reelected.
Joe
I remember
Biden
reading that.
actually,
too.
he posted about, after the Chiefs won, he posted a picture of himself with laser eyes that said,
yes.
all according to plan.
Yeah. That
I
was
also remember-
in bad taste given some other things going on in the world, but who's to say?
I remember reading that and somebody making the joke that, yes, well-known bastion of liberal thought, the NFL, would certainly do something like this.
Yes. And also well-known bastion of liberal thought, Taylor Swift. Also.
Mhm.
Like, she seems fine, but, like, not, like, way out there. I
Yeah,
would
not
say.
like PSYOP, deep state,
Mm,
liberal.
No,
that's
no.
what they want you to believe.
It's true. That's how deep it is.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Well,
They're all
that
they're
happened.
all in the pocket.
That happened. No one seems to care for either team, so
Mhm.
it
Who
is
was the other
calm.
team?
The 49ers. Do you know where they're
Ah.
from?
The 49th state, California.
No. Yes. I mean, you got it, but that's also not the
Yay.
49th state.
What is the 49th state? Hawaii?
Alaska?
Alaska?
Hawaii?
Alaska, I think.
One
One
of
of
the
those
two.
two. But yeah, it's
'Cause of
they are
The
from
gold rush.
they're from
Yes.
San
in
Francisco.
California.
San Francisco 49ers.
Yes.
They lost at the
Mhm.
very end of the game in
Damn.
dramatic fashion, which is a shame for them. I don't like them, but I'm sure they have players on their team who have loved
Mhm.
ones that care for them, and therefore I must empathize with them.
I'm sure someone cared. But...
Yeah, someone did almost assuredly. Yeah, so my shout out of the week, I had a great experience before the Super Bowl. I went to see Lisa Frankenstein
What's
in
that?
theaters.
Lisa Frankenstein.
It's a movie directed by Zelda Williams.
Oh,
Yeah.
Is it about Lisa Frank or Frankenstein?
Lisa,
both.
Or both.
It was about Frankenstein. So the premise is there's a girl in the 80s who is goth and likes hanging out in cemeteries and isn't getting along well in school. And so she wishes that she could be with this dead guy whose bust on his grave she really finds handsome.
Mhm.
And then he comes to life, and she basically they like kind of date, but kind of not. And she helps him become more human by killing people and attaching their living parts to his dead parts to make him
That escalated.
to make him more alive. And this all happens
See-
in the trailer, so I don't think I'm spoiling anything. But it's a fun movie.
This sounds like a movie that would be on like TV from like the 80s. Was it new looking or did they have like an aesthetic?
They had an
Like-
aesthetic, but the lighting was very good. It was not like a
Okay.
film grain, like we're trying to make it look
Mhm.
like the 80s sort
Okay.
of vibe. It had a lot of pink and blue lighting,
Mm.
a lot of very good goth outfits.
Nice.
That's fun.
Who doesn't like goth?
Yeah, it's a fun movie. It's an hour and a half or so, hour 40 minutes. It's pretty breezy, and it's a fun time. I would recommend. Would watch again.
Can
I
I?
think it'd be a very good watch along movie.
Mm,
Nice.
when it
Can I bring up
eventually-
something we discussed, I think, last week?
Yes, please.
yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, for our listeners who come back,
Hi.
hello, I watched a few episodes, I think 5, of Birdie Wing
Oh!
Yay!
per M's recommendation.
What did you think?
It's pretty good. It's
Mhm,
got some weirdness going on. That part of it I appreciate, part of it I don't appreciate. I
mhm.
do have one firm sticking point though, and
Okay.
this is sort of par for the course.
Ah,
But nonetheless, I'm going to bring it up.
Par for the course.
Why did they
shoot.
make the main characters 14?
That's what I said.
They could have been
I-
like 17, 18. It would have made just as much sense.
Yes. They insist that they're competing in the under 15 category, but the main character looks like she's 20 something. I had very few things to say on the Discord about it besides like how blown away I was by the weirdness. Except for that, I was like, this is taking me out of it a little bit. uh yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's pretty big. Steve Buscemi, how do you do, fellow kids?
Yes. I couldn't tell you why they did that. I would
Yeah,
like
that's-
them to have not done that.
That's my biggest issue from a golf anime that seems to have only a passing resemblance to real golf.
The golf superpower anime seems a little hard to find realism in, but
Just a question.
that was the sticking point.
How much worse do you think it is to have the anime where the 14-year-olds look like 20-somethings, but it's all animated, as opposed to your Buffy's the Vampire Slayer or 90210's, where, hey, these kids are supposed to be 17, 18, but they're played by human 20-somethings.
30-year-olds, yeah.
20
and 30-year-olds instead of hand-drawn ones.
Uh-huh.
Which is worse for humanity?
I think the former, because like that's the animation thing is a conscious decision that would be so easy.
You could have drawn them however.
Yeah, or you could have just made it the U18 championships.
Yeah, exactly.
And it would have been a little better. Like, you need actors. Actors are actual actors. This is a decision somebody made. Was like, no, they should be 14.
I mean, there are child actors. Like, now, most of
True.
the shows...
There are now child actors. Before, they could not get child actors for any roles.
They just had to put up with worse acting.
It was less about worse acting and more about we have to give these children breaks. Yeah. Yes.
These children can't be in the Peach Pit after dark.
Oh boy.
All right. Well,
yeah.
That's stuff that isn't Alan Wake. Speaking of Alan Wake, though.
Excellent transition.
Talk about Alan Wake.
Let's talk about Alan Wake. Tell me about Alan Wake.
Alan Wake is a apparently prolific writer who decides that because he cannot write and he cannot sleep, he has insomnia.
Can drink though.
He can drink. He can drink, and seems like that's about it.
Curse at people and distance those who care about him.
Yes. He decides that a good idea would be to go to a lake house and bring his lovely wife along with him. So they go to the town of, what's the town name?
Bright Falls.
Bright Falls. And
for Deer Fest.
Yeah, for Deer Fest, which sounds lovely. And things get weird and spooky. His wife goes missing, and there are dark things chasing after him in the forest, and you shine lights on them and shoot them with guns, and they go away, and you're going to figure out where your wife went. That's Alan Wake, baby.
Yes. So this was made by Remedy, the same company that made Max Payne. They also made Control, which we played, I think, 2 or 3 years ago now. So Control is in many ways a spiritual successor to Alan Wake, and they take place in the same universe. But Alan Wake, it was an Xbox 360 game. It's been re-released now with Alan Wake Remastered. That's the version that we all played. And yeah, you play as basically a knockoff Stephen King, who is, I guess, less prolific and more of an alcoholic. And man, how would you describe? So it's a shooter. It's a third-person shooter.
Yeah.
It's also a third-person flashlighter.
Yeah.
Pete, how would you describe the main gameplay conceit?
You know what it reminded me of? What I was thinking a lot when I played it, but a much less interesting gameplay version was Left 4 Dead.
Okay.
So
I thought you were going to say Luigi's Mansion.
no, I've never played Luigi's Mansion. Didn't we
That'd
just
be a
make a
good call.
Luigi's Mansion reference last week too?
Did we?
2 weeks ago?
You know, we
Re-
should try to
what
go
reference to what?
every podcast should have one.
Yeah.
Maybe it was Mario RPG that I'm thinking of.
Oh, yes.
Regardless, so it reminded me of Left 4 Dead in that Alan Wake loves set pieces. So like you get to an area and you're like, oh man, we need to turn the generator on. But once we turn the generator on, all the shadow people are going to attack. Left 4 Dead works the same way. You know, like you have to open up the door or whatever, but you know the zombies will come at that moment. So there's a lot of sort of set pieces. But basically the primary objective is when you see a shadow person, you keep the flashlight on them until they become vulnerable, at which point you can shoot them in the face.
Yep. And that's what you do in this game is you shine the flashlight. Your aim button is also your flashlight button. And when an enemy has a flashlight on them, they are going to stop attacking you for the most part. Unless they're really big. The really big guys, they keep moving. But they like walk slowly towards you. And then once they are like, there's a circle that slowly contracts as you shine a light on them. When it, basically disappears entirely, they are vulnerable to gunshots. And as you're shining the light and aiming at them, what happens to your battery, Em, on your flashlight?
It go down.
It go down.
It go down.
When you are not aiming, flashlight recharge. When you are aiming,
It go up.
It go down. Do y'all know about the product tie-in that existed in the original game?
Product tie?
Oh.
What,
Yeah.
Duracell? Like, is Alan Wake
Yes.
selling batteries?
Energizer was the official
Energizer.
sponsor.
Why?
You know, I dare to say they didn't know how the batteries work in this game because the batteries in this game last, 10 to 15 seconds if you're using them?
Not long.
You just turn through those things by turning your flashlight into, I don't know, high mode or whatever. So yeah, bad product placement. They're just like lithium ion batteries. It is funny that they emphasize that they are lithium ion batteries.
They do.
In the remaster.
I wish they had gone even further though, and if you picked up Energizer batteries, they lasted twice as long or something. Just go all in if you're gonna do something that dumb.
Yep, I don't think that's how they did it. But yeah, the batteries. What did y'all think, Em? What did you think of the aiming, draining your battery mechanic?
I mean, you gotta limit it somehow, I guess. Otherwise, you will just be able to point your flashlight at everything all the time, and there's no challenge to it. So I understood from a design perspective why they would do that, but also not the most exciting way to handle that.
See, my
yes.
issue was that once you got the enemy down
Mhm.
and you just wanted to shoot him, you didn't want to shine your flashlight on him. There was no option for simply aim to shoot.
Yes.
So even if I had disabled an entire crowd of enemies except for one guy, I would basically be wasting flashlight juice by putting down the guys I've already
Also
made
known
vulnerable.
as batteries.
Energy.
Flashlight juice.
Electricity.
The liquid that you put in your flashlight.
Is that not how your flashlights work?
Energizer has the juiciest batteries. I know that.
That's their motto.
Energizer, we got the juice.
This podcast is not sponsored by Energizer.
No, we're a Duracell
Clearly.
family.
We're a Duracell household. But yeah, like that annoyed the hell out of me. Was aiming at a person who was already vulnerable when I knew that there was another person who was farther away that I was going to have to shine my flashlight on in a second, but I'd have to waste batteries. Now, thankfully, the game throws so many batteries at you that it doesn't matter. Just use them. It's not a big deal. But I did find that to be a bit of a nuisance just here and there, especially early on when you don't have a lot of batteries. Did you find any of the guns fun to use?
Oh,
I mean,
no.
Yes,
I'm
yeah.
trying to think. I can't think of any that sound fun to use.
I mean, generally they're not that exciting. The only really amazing one is the flare gun.
Yeah,
Which-
the one that's basically a rocket launcher. That's the good one.
Yes.
Yeah.
The kill everything button. Enemies are scared of light, so if you make a big burst of light, that'd be great.
They explode.
Yeah.
I was honestly more excited about the different models of flashlight. So you can get
The
you have
heavy-duty
regular
flashlight.
yeah, you got regular heavy duty lantern and heavy duty lantern.
Damn, you got a heavy duty lantern?
I think it's like only at the very end of the game you get it at like the climax.
Okay, maybe I missed the heavy duty lantern.
Maybe I'm thinking of the DLC and I'm just like mixing stuff together.
That might be. But
That was the big
still.
selling point of the DLC. You can have a heavy duty lantern.
It was
What,
it was a time of pre-order bonuses.
what makes it better than the other flashlights?
So I don't know if you notice this, Em, but when you pick up a new flashlight, you get a different icon at the top of your screen.
Okay.
I think the like light radius was bigger.
Bigger circles, and I think they last.
Yeah.
They can be aimed longer.
Okay.
Those
That
are the
makes
things.
So real gameplay changes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can also upgrade your guns. Like you get a shotgun, and then you can trade it off for a pump action shotgun that can hold like 6 bullets instead of 2, but it does less damage. And then you can find a hunting rifle, but you can only carry one of the shotgun or the hunting rifle. So sometimes there's choices, but not really because they don't. You just use those occasionally when you run out of handgun ammo. And then you've got grenades, which are flares, which you can use to kind of ward off enemies, and they have kind of a big radius where they will inflict light damage upon enemies. And then you have a flashbang, which is a different one-hit kill from the flare gun.
So you know what distressed me about the flares?
What?
Maybe just the flare gun is so like these are light weapons, right? They have no mass. But like if you shoot a flare at enemies and it hits, it has like an AoE effect, but the enemies like explode as if you just hit them with a rocket. That's not how flares work.
I mean, you
It's
shoot them
how-
and then they pop, right? I guess.
They like fly 40 feet in the air.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Well, I thought the flares were like ground flares, like, you know, when your car gets dinged up off the road and you put them on the ground.
Yeah, you have those and you have the flare gun flares and flashbangs too.
Mm-hmm.
I will say the only weapons that felt good to me were the one-hit kill weapons. The flashbang felt good, the flare gun felt good, and the flashbang felt really good. The flare gun, it's a rocket launcher. It turns out shooting a gun that works like a gun instead of this like weird flashlight mechanic that they've got going on, that feels way better. And the flares are basically, I would like to leave this combat now, please.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because when you drop a flare, all the enemies will like cover up, all scared of the light, and you can just run past them at that point.
Yep.
And there's no upside to killing anything unless you are absolutely forced to. They just waste your ammo. They don't drop anything. There's no pluses. Just run. Just run away from them. If you see a light, Em, can you explain how the safe zones work?
Yeah.
Safe havens.
So if there is a light, you should run into that light and just stand in it, and your health will restore. This is the I guess the next stage of like game iconography where it's like, if there is a hallway that's lit up, you should probably go down that hallway. This takes it to the like exponentially, like the hallway that is lit up is your safe haven, and if it's glowing a lot, that's real good.
That's where the checkpoints be.
Yeah, exactly. Um, you want there's a lot of light and darkness in this game, you might notice.
Yeah, both real and metaphorical.
Yes. People are scared of the dark and light good.
The true dichotomy.
Yeah.
But yeah, if
That's
you
it.
go into one of those safe havens, one of those circles, not only do you get a checkpoint, it usually also deletes all of the enemies that were chasing you.
Yes, that too.
So just simply running to the light will get you past whatever combat encounter you were up against.
That would have been almost more interesting if you got in the light and then all the enemies just stood in a semicircle around it waiting for you to leave.
Yes, that would have been a very different experience than what they went with, which is it's a checkpoint, just sprint up to it and then move on with your day. There were so many enemies that I just sprinted directly at the light instead of bothering to fight them. Like that was the entire end of the game for me, was sprinting past enemies.
How often did y'all find yourselves dodging? There's a dodge mechanic.
I did it accidentally a few times.
I did it in the tutorial when they force you to, and then I was like, cool, never again.
Exactly. I mean, doing it by accident. Or I get hit by something and then I'm like, oh, right, there's a dodge mechanic in this game. And then I'll do it for like 2 tries. And then I'm like, why am I not just shooting things?
Or sprinting past them.
Yeah. You know what the better way to dodge damage is? Kill everything around you. Flare gun.
It's a real galaxy brain move. Do I dodge? No. Kill everything.
Dodge this.
I mean, if the dodge is tied to the same button as run, and so I very often was like, why am I? If I just run and jump away from them, they won't be close enough to hit me. So then I don't need to use the dodge mechanic. And once I have run and chosen that, I won't have enough stamina to actually dodge. So the button doesn't work for dodging anymore. Alan Wake needs to get an inhaler or get cardio. I don't know what it is. But that dude, his run is sub like James from Silent Hill 2. It's incredible how little this man can run.
He's an alcoholic writer. I mean, he's not out there pounding the pavement.
He does not seem like a very active fella.
He's really good at killing for someone who's not that active.
There's a line in the game. Is there? Am I imagining this? About him like going to a shooting range?
Yeah. He says something like, this is my first time shooting a gun not at the range.
Yeah.
But it felt natural to me.
I was like, ooh, world building. Very nice.
Yeah. Bringing a little backstory into it. Also, the way he talks it's all like that. It's not very good.
Yeah, we will.
It's all like the worst one-liners from Law and Order.
Yes, we will get into that shortly. Just last thing on the gameplay before, or there's 2 other things I want to touch on for the gameplay before we go over to the story zone. How many enemies would you say there are in this game? Just like types.
Oh, enemy types?
Yeah,
are we counting inanimate objects that they throw at you?
Inanimate objects are one enemy type.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
They call them poltergeist.
They have a name for them?
Yeah, they say it's poltergeist.
I didn't remember that. Birds.
Birds, the second enemy type.
Yeah, there's guys with axes. Subtype of those.
There's guys with chainsaws.
Yeah.
Firefighters.
Yep.
Axe or shovel.
Yeah.
Guy with knives. Like shifty little guys.
There's like a fast guy.
Right. There's a big guy.
And then there's blinky guy, like shadowy blinky guy who like warps around.
Right.
But otherwise is the same as all the other guys. He's just harder to shoot because he warps around. That's
Is that
it.
all the guys?
Those are
Yeah.
all the guys. That's all the enemies I think you fight in this entire game. There are some bosses, but the bosses are just inanimate objects or guys with
Mhm.
bigger health bars. Um, so this game runs about 10 hours, and I would say maybe 8 of it are fighting those guys we just outlined.
Yep.
And this isn't like a Halo situation where, yeah, the mix of grunts and elites and brutes makes a unique experience every time. There's the infinitely replayable. I was tired of the combat about an hour in.
Yeah.
It felt like it was stretched thin then, and they just keep using it.
I got up to the gas station and I was like, oh, it's just going to be more of this combat, isn't it? Oh boy.
Yeah, the only part it gets like slightly refreshed is when they give you a car. You know, like now you can run over the guys, and then even that gets tired.
Because you don't even drive the car that long usually. Usually it's like 30 seconds to a minute, and then you're where you need to go, and it's like, dang, I guess the road's out. Gotta climb between this narrow corridor on foot. Would you believe that this game was originally supposed to be an open world game?
That is what they say. Yes.
I mean, I'd believe it. I believe they claimed it.
It was supposed to have a dynamic day-night cycle.
Yeah.
And it would have been a survival game where, like,
What would
daylight,
the day have been?
you collect resources, and then
Okay.
at night you have to defend yourself.
Yeah, it's like in Minecraft where the zombies come out at night. You could sort of see, like, when you first get into the actual game world, it looks like it should be like a Skyrim situation where you're on like a little path and you think, oh, I can just sort of run, to the nearest location, namely the gas station. Then it's like, that's too hard. We're gonna just put a linear path through the forest here, and that'll do it.
Yeah, apparently a lot of the game world ended up the same as what the open world was, but they just like sliced and diced it into levels, basically. But yeah, that explains why some of this game might feel a little haphazard, because it was a different game at one point, and then I guess probably the combat still existed and the location still existed, and then they had to stitch together some stuff.
Yep. This is why so much of it is just running around in the woods.
Yep.
Because that's what they made. A big old woods.
Yeah. So that's kind of a bummer, but I think that the concept is good. I wanted to like playing this game's combat a lot more than I did. But yeah, they just stretch it way too thin. Yeah. And generic woods, at a certain point, no matter how good your concept is, if you're just wandering around the woods getting attacked by the same 3 dudes over and over and over again, it just doesn't hold up. And it's a shame because there are sections where you're not in the woods, where the game looks really good and has kind of cool locations. Like when you're at the therapy place.
Yep.
Like that's a cool location. Or when you're in the cave system occasionally, that's a cool location. But unfortunately, it's mostly woods.
The only like combat set piece, some of them were funny, but the one I actually enjoyed was the concert. There's
that's the best part of the game.
There's a rock and roll stage in a farm, in a cornfield basically, and these old school hard rockers set it up with like pyrotechnics and flares and all this cool stuff because they were also fighting the darkness, and you get to use it all to kill the shadow people, and it's basically the only time killing all those shadow people is legit fun.
Yep, it is definitely the highlight of the game.
Mm-hmm.
So one other thing I wanted to touch on gameplay wise, Em, how many collectibles or collectible adjacent things are in this game?
Okay, so you have the manuscripts, and they're like an important plot point. Alan wrote a manuscript over the course of a week that he doesn't remember, and it gets scattered throughout the world, and you got to pick those up, and that gives you like prophetic clues about what's going on currently most of the time.
Yeah, or info about like characters you can't see. It's like stuff
Yes.
you're not there for.
Yeah. So that's one of them, and then there's the coffee thermoses, which are spread throughout, and that is just your generic collect 100 of these things, and
Yeah, smooth hundo of those.
yeah, you win a prize. What do you
know what the
get
prize
for?
is?
No, I don't know.
Let me see.
Is-
You get
is-
an achievement at one point.
Is it
Get
just
some
the
gamer
achievement?
points.
Yeah,
Let me see. I'm looking it up.
unknown.
Coffee thermoses.
I mean, 100's a lot.
Yeah,
I don't
that's
care
so
about
many.
the locations. I want to know the prizes.
It's not like 800 seeds like in Breath of the Wild, but it's also not as fun to explore this world. So
Mhm. Can you even go back for like
Oh,
if
I
you
don't even
miss
know.
one? I do
it
not
never even
think
occurred to
so.
me to backtrack. I was like, I
No.
don't want to do this again.
I think
do
all
not.
of it is self-contained, like discrete set pieces. So
Yeah.
there's
I don't
no
think
way.
you can. I don't think
Yeah.
you can. I don't see anything that says what you get
Okay.
if you get all the
Nothing.
thermoses other than an achievement.
Thermi. What's the plural of thermos? Thermoses?
Thermoses. I don't know. Thermoses?
Thermes.
It's probably just thermoses.
Thermos.
Thermos.
Um,
Thermopods.
So there's those. There's also Night Springs episodes.
Yes. Do these count as collectibles?
I mean, you have to find them.
Gotta find
They're
them.
not.
Yeah.
At least you get a reward. You
That's
get to watch
true.
the episode.
Yeah. These
There's
are fun.
The radio shows, if we're counting
I do.
like just things you experience.
I do
Yep.
count those.
Okay.
So there's at least 4, I think, between
Yeah.
those, and 2 of
The-
them. Oh, go ahead, Pete.
I was just gonna say the DLC also adds its own, as if we didn't have enough already.
That's it? What does it add?
You get like 10 things in each DLC, so like 10 widgets in one and 10 widgets in the other. I forget what it is. It's like a coffee mug or something.
They
dumb.
are Night Springs video games in one, and they
Uh-huh.
are alarm clocks in the other.
Sure.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
my problem with the collectibles is that the 2 good ones, the radio show and the Night Springs episodes, basically require you to just stand there watching or listening to a thing that
A very small
has-
thing.
Mhm.
yes, a very small thing that has diegetic sound.
Yes.
So like if you walk away, that radio stops playing. So it's a game that's asking you to find these things to build out. Actually, I would say 3 of them. The manuscripts require you to go into a menu and then read them. So
True.
it's really a game that's inviting you to not play it for many of its best parts.
My
Which seems
favorite.
like a problem.
Yeah, there's a Night Springs episode that plays in the there's like a lodge situation that is basically getting attacked by the darkness, and so you're watching the episode while the like suspenseful music is playing, and you cannot hear the episode. It doesn't have the subtitles for it because I guess it thinks that you can't hear it because
There's combat.
there's combat happening.
Yeah,
So
but Alan Wake can't hear the music.
apparently he can. He can't see the subtitles, but
That's a good point too.
Yeah, so
I don't know.
The
That one
game,
drove me crazy.
I mean,
It
boy,
looked
oh
like a
boy.
good episode too.
There are a lot of good episodes. Like Night Springs is a knockoff of what show, Pete?
Twilight Zone.
Are either of you Twilight Zone people?
Yeah, I have a poster of
some
Rod
episodes.
Serling in my room right now.
Oh, sick.
Do you know he used to
Really?
smoke 4 packs a day?
Holy shit.
Damn, what a
Right.
cool guy.
Any guesses on what he died of?
Being too cool?
Old age.
Yeah.
Oh, sick.
At a smooth 40 of lung cancer.
Oh, no.
Oh boy.
But the
He
smooth,
was
refreshing
40?
taste of menthol.
No, he
Yeah.
died at 50.
50, excuse me. Still
Okay.
pretty young.
It's like he looked like shit for
Fucking
40.
smoking 4 packs a day.
That would do it.
Oh man. So Pete, how would, as a Twilight Zone fan, how do you find the Night Springs episode? How do they, between if there's a spectrum between the Twilight Zone and the scary door from Futurama, where do we think Night Springs fits?
All right, let's first off, Twilight Zone was on for a lot of episodes. So like people remember the bangers, and there are bangers. There are a lot of misses. there are a lot of crummy episodes of the Twilight Zone. So some of like Night Springs are good, right? Like I remember the one I can think of off the top of my head was the quantum suicide one.
Yes, that one's so good.
The first one.
That one's
fine.
Yeah, that one's good. That one's interesting. They're sort of they drift more towards Twilight Zone than Scary Door. But I mean, they some of them fit in the long tradition of like some Twilight Zones where you're like, all right, I get it. Like, let's move to the next one.
It's worth mentioning that these are like 1 minute at most.
Yeah.
They do not have to pad it out very much.
No,
they
mostly
pick their
just
one
get to
premise,
Yeah.
and they're like, we get it.
They give you like 10 lines back and forth, and then you're on to the next thing.
Yeah,
And-
I really like the quantum suicide episode, where a guy creates a machine that makes it so that if he shoots himself with a gun, the gun will always malfunction. But there are other realities where the gun always goes off. And he's like, yes, but this gun never goes off here because of my amazing machine. I'm invincible from this gun. And then someone unplugs his machine and he shoots himself in the head.
Mhm.
Which is like, that's a classic Twilight Zone move right there. Like one of the most famous episodes of the Twilight Zone is where the guy, spoiler for a 70-year-old show, once basically like he's at the end of the world, but he's so happy because now he has time to read forever.
Yeah.
But then he breaks his glasses. Like that's a classic Twilight Zone move. Just unplug the machine.
Yeah, that
Black
one's really good.
Comedy.
I liked the one where it's like someone's within a dream and all the people are like, oh, that guy is asleep. That guy's the guy who's asleep. And there's a guy who thinks he's in a dream, and then he finds out it's not his dream, it's actually someone else's dream. And so if that guy ever wakes up, everyone dies. And
That's a good
so
one.
all of the people are just like trying to attend to this sleeping man to make sure that nothing ever startles him. And then he starts waking up, and they're just like, no, I have children, I have a family, don't wake up. And then episode ends.
Yep.
I also like the thing in the basement episode. Did y'all get that
Remember
one?
that one?
I don't remember that one. Yeah, what's the thing in the basement?
There's two old
There's
women.
a thing in the basement.
There's two old women, and one of them says, hey, there's this thing in my basement. Come downstairs and check it out. And it's like a portal. It's a portal in her basement, and it's otherwise a normal basement. And they're like, what is it? And she's like, I don't know. It just showed up. There's this thing in the basement. And then a person emerges from the portal and goes, hey, so I'm writing a thing right now, and I don't know what the thing in the basement is yet. This is more like the absence of an idea than it is a cool thing. I wrote both of you. I wrote this whole scene, and I've got some writer's block. I don't know what's going to be in the basement, but eventually something's going to be here, and it's going to be cool. So could you just let me process this? Go back upstairs, talk about your kids, and I'll write a better thing to be in the basement. I thought that was pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Good fourth wall breaking move. But yeah, that's I think the most fun. Like Night Springs, in many ways, I feel like influenced what happens later on in Control. Like Control is like, what if the Night Springs zaniness was more peppered throughout the game instead of it just being a few discrete episodes. Pete, would you say this game is more influenced by The Twilight Zone, Stephen King, or Twin Peaks?
I don't think it's Twilight Zone. I think we can knock that one out. This game is sort of like, what if Stephen King was a dick? Because the beginning's a classic Stephen King story, right? Like, if you know anything about Stephen King's biography, you know about the time he was hit by a car on like a mountain road or something. I mean, I don't know that much about Stephen King. So this is sort of taking that movement and inverting it. So instead of Stephen King getting hit, Stephen King hits a guy with his car. And I think that tells you a lot about the difference between Alan Wake and Stephen King, is who gets hit by a car and who hits somebody with their car.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think
Honestly, I've never seen Twin Peaks.
Stephen King also struggled with alcoholism.
You would like
True.
Twin Peaks.
So I haven't watched too much of Twin Peaks. I just know that during this era, like every other game wanted to be frickin' Twin Peaks for some reason. There was Deadly Premonition, which was also Twin Peaks, but not. But yeah, Twin Peaks is like a detective shows up in a quiet town in the Northwest where a local teen was murdered, and he's trying to figure it out, and the townsfolk are weird. So like the lamp lady in this game is very much inspired by, I think it's the log lady. There's a woman who holds a thing in Twin Peaks.
Yeah.
I'm honestly mixing up. I don't know if the log lady is from Twin Peaks or if it's from Deadly Premonition, because all three of them have a lady who carries something.
Yeah, it's Twin Peaks. She's a Twin Peaks character, and then other things are riffing on that.
Yeah, so like there's that. Other than that, and maybe like some David Lynch-esque delivery of like the Taken, which are the characters who you're shooting, like the people you have to shine your flashlight on. There's not that much Twin Peaks here, other than you're in the Northwest, and there's like down home Northwestisms, like the local radio host, the local doctor who you meet.
I mean, Deer Fest and the competing Moose Fest in the next town over.
Yeah.
Alan does reference it, like as he goes into the diner. He says something about a damn good cup of coffee, which is a Twin Peaks thing.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. So it's all mixed together.
Okay, so now that we've covered the gameplay and some of the collectible stuff so thoroughly, let's turn our attention to the story. Thankfully, there isn't actually that much because there's so much frickin' combat, so I think we can get through it pretty quick. So Alan and his wife, they show up at the lake house. Alan wakes up one night, and his wife is dragged down into the bottom of the lake, and wouldn't you know it, she's scared of the dark too. And he dives in after her, can't save her, and then the next thing we know, he wakes up behind the wheel of a car after being in a car accident, and he doesn't remember the last week of his life. And combat ensues. At this point, I believe we get introduced to his agent pretty soon after this.
Barry.
Yes.
Barry, who's from New York.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Can we talk about specifically Barry and a long time ago we played Bayonetta for the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Before my time, do you recall the character Enzo?
Oh, how could I not?
How could you forget the classic? What's up with that? Can we? Why are these two men so similar?
I can't forget about it.
Why are they both New Yorkers? What does this say about New York and Italians and?
Is Barry supposed to be Italian or is he supposed to be Jewish? It's always.
I don't know. Could be a little.
It's hard to tell.
Yeah, Enzo's Italian. I just read Barry as Enzo, but in a normal story instead of Bayonetta.
You're not wrong. Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of overlap between the New York Jewish enclaves and the New York Italian enclaves. Mm-hmm. I've heard it. I forget who said it. Someone said that a reason why both enclaves are so similar is because they are both shouting-based cultures.
True.
Familial and shouting-based cultures, which that rang true to me. But yeah, Barry, I don't know why. She's just like a New York stereotype, and I believe Remedy. Where is Remedy based out of? They are not based out of the U.S. from what I remember. I want to say they are like Finnish or something.
Yeah, like Dutch. I don't know.
Helsinki.
Ah.
Yeah, so they ain't from America. It's very much like oh, he's a big author. He would of course have a big boisterous New York agent of, those very successful big authors in the United States. Yeah, the most unrealistic thing about this game is when you show up to town and there's a cutout of Alan Wake in
a
everyone
diner.
Yeah.
People recognize him by face just out in the world.
Like, this isn't a flex. I read a lot. I'm probably in like the top quartile. And I couldn't.
I'm literate.
Right, I know. I couldn't tell you what a single author in the entire world looks like. Not a single one.
Yeah. Literally, I was like, I'm pretty sure if I saw Stephen King on the street, I would be like, that's just some old guy.
It's like, what's this old dude doing on the street? Get him out of here.
He's going to get hit by a car. Get him out of here.
Yeah. So the cutout might be my favorite running gag in the entire game. Because Barry
picks it up and just carries it around with it.
Yeah, he keeps talking to it and protecting it. And that's pretty good. Barry's just like, I'll sue you. You leave my client alone. I will sue you. And anytime he tells a small town person that he will sue them, they just immediately go, well, I guess Alan Wake's allowed to shoot people with guns.
I don't need to see your permit at all. Carry on, Mr. Wake.
I'm sorry. I don't know where you got a shotgun, a hunting rifle, a pistol, flashbang grenades, but okay. Sorry, sir. So Barry's pretty great. I like everything he adds. There's several early sequences where Alan Wake happens to bump into normal people, and that's the worst thing that could possibly happen to them. Because they get possessed by the darkness as soon as he shows up, and then they start reciting. Pete, how would you describe the things that the Taken say?
Oh, man. They're just generally good, wholesome advice. Like, one guy tells you about omega-3 fatty acids and how good they are for your heart. I think there's multiple advice about camping, like keeping your feet dry or something dumb like that.
My favorite is Carl Stuckey, who is the guy who is supposed to give you the key to the cabin, but a different cabin than the one you actually got. He is just shouting like locations that you should check out in town, like tourist
tour guide.
While he is chasing you with an axe. By the way, it's very funny. I think
that might be the best. Like, most of the combat in this game is not charming or fun, but the things that the enemies shout is, and that might be the most evocative thing that they did, I think, in this game. Like, they really nailed what a cool vibe for the enemies. Like, they are people, they are still who they used to be, but monstrous versions of them. And the way they are monstrous is that they are reciting mundane facts blithely in a voice that's very ominous.
And you're killing them. You
sure do.
As you are going through this game, you kill so many people. It's fine.
I love that, there's one radio, I think it might be the radio, or one time you run into the doctor, and he's like, these people keep shooting guns in the air about Deerfest. People need to calm down.
Yep, that was on the radio.
Yeah, somebody called in.
Yep.
Yeah, not realizing that Alan Wake is just in the woods offing people.
People are really going crazy for Deerfest this year.
Why do the youths keep drinking and celebrating Deerfest early with guns?
No, they're monsters. Someone call in and tell them there are monsters.
No one ever calls it. And Alan Wake gets arrested pretty early on. Like, you make your way to the radio
He gets
station.
arrested multiple times.
The FBI tries to execute him on site, though.
Yeah.
No questions asked, bullets flying, on site.
So, Detective Nightingale, the FBI agent,
got some problems.
So we find out pretty early on that this is Alan has written the story, right? The manuscript that he wrote during that missing week is dictating the terms of events. do we think Agent Nightingale continually just being like, I'm just gonna, like Alan Wake says one word and he's like, you say one more word, Stephen King, and I'll fill you full of lead.
Yeah, he throws a Bret Easton Ellis reference out there too.
That was a deep
Agatha
cut.
Christie, you say one more thing. And like, are we supposed to take his dialogue as evidence of Alan Wake being a hack?
Oh, I'm so glad you brought this up, Gino. He definitely is. He's a shit writer.
He is not a good writer. If the dialogue that he says throughout the game is any indication, he
Can I want to give
Yes.
my best piece of evidence
yes.
Please do.
for Alan
As someone
Wake
who
being a
has
horrible
read,
writer.
I mean, you read, just so people know your credentials here, you did like pre-vetting on book submissions, right?
Mhm.
Oh yeah. I was an intern at an editing company for a while.
So you read a lot of books from people who may or may not be good at writing them.
Oh sure. Most of them aren't. A lot of people want to write cookbooks too. You'd be surprised how easy it is to screw up a cookbook.
So
Weird.
what is your evidence that
This is
Wake
my
isn't good?
favorite. I didn't read all the manuscripts because I wasn't going to track all of them down, but I read a lot of them. And this is my favorite manuscript piece from the whole game. So this is Alan Wake at some point in the game gets attacked by a bulldozer,
Mhm.
and you have to fight this bulldozer. So here's the text that he writes about this event. The bulldozer's engine roared to life. Mud and rocks flew as it fought for traction. It crashed the concrete wall and landed heavily in the yard. We're doing okay so far. Here's where it goes off the rails. If it were an animal, it would have shaken its head after the impact, fixed its eyes on me, and charged. Of course, it had no head, nor eyes. That's Alan Wake describing a bulldozer.
Thank you, Alan.
I
You-
mean,
He could have left it without that last bit, and it would have been like, okay.
Yeah, it would have made perfect sense, but he felt the need to tell you that the bulldozer had no head or eyes.
Yeah. Just
I
so
mean-
you're clear on it.
Weird metaphor.
I think it works in that it's funny, and they're trying to show that Alan Wake's full of himself. And I forget who it is, if Barry or like someone you run into says, oh no, it's the lieutenant. I guess they've read Alan's work and they're like, yeah, Mr. Wake, I like your work. It's got a few too many metaphors for my taste, but
Another really weird criticism.
so yeah, I mean, do you think that this means, what do you think Remedy thinks of Stephen King? Considering Alan Wake is like their Stephen King stand-in, like, do they think he's a shit writer?
That's a good question. I mean, like
So-
Stephen King. You go.
I do know for a fact that they got in contact with Stephen in order to they use a quote in the beginning of the game from one of his essays, I believe, and they had to go to him for permission, and they also sent him a copy of the game, and I can't find it now, but the only thing it said on the Wikipedia page was they sent him multiple copies of the game, but he couldn't play them because he did not own an Xbox. So whatever their criticisms of Stephen King are, he will never find them because he is too busy writing a million books
Writing a
and
million
does
books
not
and touching
own a
grass.
game. Yes, he does not own a game console.
He also,
Good for him.
He's sort of notorious for. I mean, he's so prolific that he's sort of notorious for like finishing a book when it's good enough. Like he's given quotes where he's like, "Yeah, if I find a word that I think's fine, I'll use it. I don't need to find the perfect word." Which, like, fine, Stephen King. We all don't have to be James Joyce. I have no issue with that. But he is a certain kind of author.
Mm-hmm.
That is what Alan Wake is supposed to have been,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
Like, they have a section where you have to watch an interview that he gave, and they get an actor who looks kind of like Alan Wake to, like, a human actor, I think.
Is it is it an actor or is it the guy who voices him? Because I was not sure.
So my understanding is that the guy who voices him is the guy the actor who plays Dr. Darling from Control.
Oh,
That is the
okay.
voice of Alan Wake. There is an actor who plays Alan Wake who is not
Okay.
the voice,
yes.
who looks very much like him.
Yeah. Also, there's another guy in that sequence. The host of the show is like,
Mhm.
oh, and also thank you, Alan, and thank you, Sam Lake. Sam Lake is a guy who wrote this game.
And
So I
apparently he
thought
likes
that
doing
was cute.
a weird face of some sort.
He tells him to make a face, and apparently that's his like trademark. Who knows?
Oh, okay.
I don't know.
Yeah. He's a Finnish game developer. He has fun.
Finnish man Sam Lake. I thought that was cute.
It was. That interview though is just like him. What they describe about his book series, where he has it's centered around a main character. We don't really know much about it, but it's, I guess,
A
thrillers.
hard-boiled detective in the city.
He's a hard-boiled detective who has bad luck in his love life, and he gets killed off, I guess, in the last book in the series.
Yeah.
He does a Sherlock Holmes where he kills him off, and then people are like, "What the fuck, man?" And then he's like, "Okay, I'll write another one," and that's part of why I think he doesn't want to write anymore.
Yeah, he said he killed him off because he was sick of writing about this.
Yeah.
Writing about this dude so much sucked, so he killed him so that he didn't have to write any more books about this guy.
Yeah, he spends all of his time writing this one guy who is miserable, and he hates it.
Unlike him, who's good and cool.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Even the fact that he's on like a late night talk show should tell you the sort of author Alan Wake is.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And then after that episode airs, you have to play that section, and Alan wakes up with you have to turn the lights off because it's too bright because he's got a hangover, and you have to you have to find sunglasses and take
painkillers. Yeah.
So I think it's fitting that we haven't talked about Alan's wife up until now, because the game, other than
fair point,
other than referencing her, it doesn't really go into them or their relationship all that much, other than Alan sucks in it.
Yeah.
Em, how would you describe Alan and his wife's relationship?
So Alan is the tortured artist type, and his wife Alice was his muse or whatever, and she seems like a somewhat normal, well-adjusted woman, but she does have a pretty severe fear of the dark. It's the dark thing again, you guys.
Oh, dang.
And she seems to think that this is a good place for Alan to like sit down and do some writing. And he gets real mad at her for that in the very beginning of the game. And then she goes missing, and then you spend the rest of the game looking for her. Yep. That's about all we know about her.
And based on who Alan Wake is, I don't know. I'm pretty sure, I was pretty sure at the beginning this was going to be a Silent Hill situation.
Oh,
and I'm like, he killed his wife, right? That's what happened. Not really, but I wouldn't have been surprised if he had.
Yeah. And I don't know if you were you had the director's commentary on or whatever.
What?
But
no.
There's an option to turn this on. And I did that in the very beginning until I found out that it was going to be talking over like cutscenes where people were talking, and I turned it off. But in the very beginning, they say something to the effect of like, "Oh, Alice is so like domineering and controlling, and she's just trying to like, wring something out of him, basically." I'm like, whoa, okay. Not my interpretation at all.
Is that what we're supposed to take away from this? Because it seems like this jerk is drinking and taking pills and partying all the time and isn't writing anymore.
Yes.
And his wife seems to be his I think she does the layout for like his book
Yeah,
covers at
she
least.
does the
Yeah,
covers.
she's cover photographer.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
it seems like her livelihood is also tied to his livelihood in more ways than one.
And he's not working anymore because he's not writing anything.
And
So
presumably he enjoyed writing at some point. Like this was his nominal passion at one
Yeah.
stage in his life.
mhm.
Yeah, it's
so
not the best.
yeah, any generous interpretation you have of Alice is unintended by the developers, based on their own statements. They were like, we want to make a like harpy who we can get rid of, and then just have him motivated to do something. I was like, okay, so that's nice of you guys.
Time to hang out with my boy Barry and these people
Yeah.
I just met.
Yeah.
Get drunk on lake water.
Mhm.
Oh man, we should talk about that. So like I think some of the major plot beats that we should probably talk about. I like the section in the cabin where they are saying like, hey Alan, everything that you're talking about with shadow people and everything, that's a delusion. Your wife is dead. You haven't been taking it well, but you're going to hang out in this mental health facility for artists, and we're going to work through this. And that would have been a cool twist if they committed to that. But they don't. The darkness is real. Alan was right.
Yeah,
Well,
the psychiatrist is in on it
Yeah.
for whatever reason.
Well, is he, or does Alan just write that he is, and therefore
That's
he
true.
is?
That's a good point.
Because I was
Unclear.
like, I think this is just what we're interpreting from the manuscripts that we're finding. I think that guy is just like, damn, this guy needs help, and I don't know what else to do. So
Right, but Alan hates him, so he
Yeah.
turns him into a villain.
yes,
That makes
Yeah,
sense.
because
I
he
think
was
there's. Oh, go ahead.
because Alice was like, oh, there's this guy, Dr. Hartman. He's gonna take a look at you. You're gonna hang out with him for a little bit. He's like, you're trying to get me committed. She's like, no.
Just like big leap there. Maybe I should.
Yep.
Seems like you're
thinking
dealing
about
with
it now.
alcoholism. Seems like you're dealing with alcoholism and depression. Thought maybe a psychiatrist who specializes in artists could help you. No?
Nope.
No, I'm a harpy? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So who knows if he's actually a villain or not?
Yeah, it's
Joe-
unclear. Go ahead, Pete.
Neither here nor there, but Alice also doesn't wear pants for most of the game.
That's true.
So just throwing that one out there too.
It was all the rage in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
Mm,
Or late aughts. But yeah,
as
you
was
do
the
meet
style.
you do meet two of the best characters in the game at the cabin. You meet
Tor and Odin.
Tor. Yeah, Tor and Odin,
Mhm.
who are aging 70s rockers
Yep.
who are their band, the Old Gods of Asgard. Do you remember them from Control?
Were they
I
in
don't.
control?
They were in control.
Their music was.
Was it?
Remember the section with the I think it's the cigarette case?
Was it
the rock and roll section?
there wasn't like a record player in
I
there?
don't remember that at all.
You put on the Walkman
Oh,
and it's playing sick
Oh.
music, and you have to go through the whatever that box is. Like there's that whole level where the music is playing as you are
Mhm.
playing. Like the best part of Control.
Oh, you mean the killer
It was a
fridge.
while ago. I don't remember.
The Killer Fridge is also good. But yeah, like that section of Control, that is the music is also from the music on the Walkman is Old Gods of Asgard.
Okay.
And the music that plays when you are fighting on the stage is their music. And it turns out that Cauldron Lake has an impact on artists. Like the darkness is like a sentient darkness that warps artists to its bidding. And so it makes them sick at art, but also their art comes to life.
Yes.
So the Old Gods of Asgard made like moonshine that gives you visions, and their music was also prophetic. Billy Zane. Should we talk about Billy Zane? Is it Billy Zane? Is that his
No,
name?
it's Thomas Zane.
Tom.
Thomas Zane.
Yeah.
Billy Zane's an actor. Damn it.
Yeah, Billy Zane's in
Tom-
Titanic.
Thomas Zane.
Thomas Zane. The reason why the ending credits is set to Major Tom, by the way, he's like in a diving suit for most of this
Yes.
Why is he in a diving suit?
because
He
tried to dive into the lake.
Yeah, he dragged his like. So, all right. Well, we have to basically tell the whole thing.
That's fine.
He was the first person who made contact with the darkness in the lake, and I forget. Do you remember how his wife died?
Did she drown? I think. Hold on, let me see if it's in the Wikipedia article.
While you're looking, so his wife died,
Oh.
and then he tried to use
Yeah, she
the
drowned.
darkness. She drowned. Okay, his wife drowned, and then he tried to use the darkness to revive her, and she came back, but she brought something with her.
She came back wrong.
Real Pet Cemetery vibes. So the darkness brought her back to life, but took over her body. Barbara was her name. So then Tom, in order to like quell the darkness, cuts out Barbara's heart. New Barbara, evil Barbara's heart, which doesn't quite do it. So then he drags her body to the bottom of the lake in the
The Heart
diving
of
suit.
Darkness.
Yep.
And he's the one who set this whole story in motion by his story was coming true. So he wrote Alan Wake. And it basically seems like Alan Wake exists because Tom Zane wrote him.
So that's where I'm not clear if Thomas Zane wrote Alan Wake into existence, or if Alan wrote Thomas
Zane into
Thomas
the.
Zane wrote about him.
Whoa.
Like a real Ouroboros.
Yeah.
Yeah, he says when you get the manuscript from Thomas Zane, Alan has some internal monologue about how he's like, I can't believe I'm reading this piece of paper that's 30 years old or 40 years old that I wrote, Thomas Zane wrote.
Mm.
And so I am now holding the clicker that he writes a plot device. Like he had this clicker that his mom gave him when he was young that he was super into, because he was scared of the dark. And so he writes the clicker into this place it never could have been, through the power of plot holes.
Listen, the magic in the lake did it.
Yeah, I really like that he just keeps saying the story, the end of the story has to be believable. It has to be true, or else it won't work. The magic won't work. And that's why he had to write the clicker, and he had to write himself into the story so that he could control the events that play out to some degree.
Yeah,
it's like a whole thing.
This is so I'm an editor in my, I guess, day job, and we were having a discussion about Deus Ex Machinas a while ago, and they were like, what's the difference between having something happen at the end and it being a Deus Ex Machina, or having it be, I guess, not that? And the thing that we came to was I guess if you just sort of weave it throughout the story, that makes it not Deus Ex Machina. So because we had references to the clicker and Thomas Zane's story, and writing it makes it real, and that's why this isn't a plot hole. It's just it's been signposted.
Yeah, basically, if you do the work to make it not seem like it's coming out of nowhere, you can do a lot of stuff in writing.
Yep. And that's writing. Just make it up and then backfill. Just fill in everything before then and put the extra work into making it look not made up.
For sure. Yeah, so there's that whole thing. The crazy lamp lady, it turns out, was Tom had a crush on Thomas Zane.
Yeah.
And so she's carrying a lamp around because she knows about the darkness, and so she never wants to be in the dark. Mm-hmm. So she creates a room that's always light so that
the well-lit
shadows.
Room.
Yeah.
That's the well-lit room that protects the manuscript page and the clicker. Alan also can find caches full of flare guns and the good weapons. and she's littered them throughout the town because she never knows when she's going to be in a shoot up, I guess. She needs to always be strapped.
Yeah. I never leave without that thing on me. It's her lamp.
Yep. Yeah, so like that happens, and then the end of the game, like you are basically, man, you fight a tornado.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You shoot a tornado with a flare gun multiple times, and then it gets into an abstract space where you have to write the ending of the manuscript, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You pretty much you trade yourself for your wife,
It seems.
Yeah.
It would seem.
Yeah.
But then
ostensibly.
Thomas Zane shows you a version of yourself that seems a little off, and he says,
Mr.
"That's Mr.
Scratch.
Scratch. Don't worry about him. He's what everyone else is going to see while you're gone."
Which, like, an instantly concerning thing for Tommy Zane to say.
Does the DLC, Pete, tell us who Mr. Scratch is or what's going on there?
Not really.
Doesn't it?
The DLC shows you like another version of you, which is like the one who wanted to die.
Oh.
So like that's how you got trapped there in the first place, because like half of you wanted to leave, half of you wanted to stay, and you need to like basically go unify yourself with the half that wanted to stay. But that half isn't Mr. Scratch. It's a third half.
What the
Damn.
hell?
There's a trinity.
Yeah. No, it doesn't really tell you anything about Mr. Scratch.
Okay. Well, maybe we'll find out about that in Alan Wake 2.
Well, I got exciting news for my pick.
Oh, sick.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, so Eddie, closing thoughts on Alan Wake?
No, I mean, not a particular, like this game, I felt like the elevator pitch was like a lot better than the game.
That's a lot of Remedy games.
Yeah. Like there's interesting stuff that like, ooh, like story comes to life, tortured artist, like a little hackney, but I could see it done well. And it just like didn't really do it.
Did we hit all of the Control references?
So in Control, they have a section that talks about, I think, the Bright Falls incident. And it talks about the click. I forget if it's the manuscript or the clicker or both, or the thermos. Like there's multiple things that are in Alan Wake has a file basically.
Yeah.
In Control that tells you about what happened in Alan Wake and that it falls within the Bureau of Control.
Mm-hmm.
There's the music that is from the old Gods of Asgard.
Yep.
So that's from the band. And I believe so. I don't know if there's anything that also ties into the DLC. I know that the janitor from Control, I think he shows up in Alan Wake 2, but I don't know if he shows up in Alan Wake 1 anywhere or in the DLC or something.
I don't remember a janitor.
Yeah.
Okay. Then yeah, those are the things that jumped out to me.
Did they have the typewriter in the bureau?
That might have been it. They might have had the typewriter.
I think that was it. Yeah, and then at the end, like right before you go into the final act, basically, the sheriff is like, Barry, call these guys and tell them Night Springs, and then they'll know what to do. So I think that was like, oh, maybe there's a secret bureau somewhere.
Oh, I thought so that the sheriff says there's like a club in town of like all the named characters. And they basically believe that something weird is up with their town. Mm-hmm. And so when they say Night Springs, it means that supernatural stuff is popping off. And so strap up.
See, basically. I didn't get any of that.
Yeah, it's like the DJ.
Oh.
The DJ, the doctor.
Right. All the named sheriff. Characters that we've met so far.
Yeah, the friends we've made along the way.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
All the people who hate Alan.
Yeah. So yeah, I thought it was going to be a SCP like sweeping in at the end to clean everything up, but then it didn't happen. Cool. I was like, oh well. Guess they didn't figure that part out yet.
Quarantine the town. Give Alice pants. Let's solve this.
Yeah, I like that
Drain
they
this
gave...
lake.
Yes. I like that they wrote Officer Nightingale into this. He's just terrible the whole time, and then they kill him off screen, basically.
Yeah,
Yep.
he just gets ripped out of frame.
Yeah.
That manuscript's one of the better manuscripts. The one that he leaves behind after he gets pulled through the portal.
Oh, yeah. Where he's
It's like he's reading it as he gets pulled.
Yeah.
As he's reading it, as he gets pulled. Like, it does a recursive loop, which is good. That's pretty good. And then the final line of the game, it's not a lake, it's an ocean.
That's what I wanted to talk about.
What do you think?
What does mean?
What does it mean?
I think maybe it's a metaphor.
Whoa.
For what?
He uses too many metaphors
He
in
does.
his writing.
I think it's like a depth thing that like the lake just like keeps going and going and going.
Damn, maybe we'll find out in the second. It'd be very funny if in the second game it was in fact an ocean and it was not a metaphor at all.
I would love it if they just went in a completely different direction. It's like, it's not a lake, it's an ocean. Wait, it's not an ocean, it's a swamp. And they just keep switching it.
I thought it was an ocean, but actually it's a it's the surface of the moon.
Bong hit.
That's what Alan needs. He needs to just smoke up with the old rocker guys.
Smoke up with the old rocker guys and Barry. They seem like they're a good time.
Yeah.
Not like his terrible wife.
That harpy. That's
He's also his
true.
muse.
It's like, what a red flag, honestly. Like, I've never heard anybody in any medium, real life, anything be like, oh, she's my muse. And they have like a healthy, like loving relationship.
No, it never works out when someone's your muse.
No.
All right, so I think that will cover our coverage of Alan Wake, which means, Pete, I believe it is your turn to pick again?
Yes, it is.
That alarm means that actually, between when we recorded this episode and now when I'm editing it, we've hit our Patreon subscriber goal. And now it is the will of the people that we play Sonic 06. So instead of Pete's pick, we will be playing Sonic 06 next time. Please enjoy my repaired version of this conversation with the new information that we've received. Thank you.
And, I found this game was a lot. It was intense. It's kind of depressing. So I'm going to pick something a little bit lighter, a little bit more fun, a little bit more peaceful. I'm going to pick a very well-regarded
Sonic
game. I'm going to pick
Sonic 06. What now?
Yeah.
Sonic 06.
It's all one word. Or you could do it as
Sonic 06.
D-O-R? Or...
S-O-N-I-C 06.
Okay.
Sonic 06.
Oh, I've seen this before.
It's a Sonic game from the year 2006 with Sonic in it.
It's a Euro.
It's like a Japanese game with Sonic in it. Yes, I see this.
I've seen this before. Okay, cool. Next up, we are playing
Sonic 06.
Wow, it sounds a lot better when you say it, Gino.
Thank you. Thank you, Pete.
Yeah, another tortured artist game. This one actually better than the last one we played.
Thank you, M.
As M. Palladino closed the Skype call, she was filled with dread for the thought of playing Alan Wake 2 sometime in the future.
If computers had eyes, they'd be staring at her. But of course, computers don't have eyes.
They don't. So, what are we really talking about here?
Unless you were to give it a webcam, in which case it would. But that ruins the metaphor. So, this computer didn't have a webcam. And thank you, dear listeners. Reminder, you can get in touch with the show at Deep Listens Pod on Twitter, deeplistens.libsyn.com. We have our comment sections and deeplistenspodcasts@gmail.com. That's where you can send us emails. You can support the show on patreon.com/deeplistens. Till next time, peace.